Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after. And I'm going to try and quote him properly here. I'm probably not going to get it, but bumped into Christian O'Mell after the game. And the words were, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't think I'm going to get it perfect, but another ho-hum domination by the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I know from the days when I was, an invested fan in different teams, no one ever gets sick of their team laying a whompin on other teams over and over and over again. So I know you're not sick of it. I know you're not bored of it. I laugh at the comment because it's basically the Winnipeg Jets just doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's a masterpiece, right? But it's like going to see, No Country for Old Men 17 straight times. You know what I mean? It's a phenomenal movie. You just keep seeing it over and over and over again. Some of those, hey, there's a great podcast, if no one's ever checked this out before. It's called The Rewatchables, where they take movies that are the kind of movies that you can watch over and over and over again. Everyone's got a bunch of those. For me, True Romance is the top of the pyramid for that. If you've never checked it out before, it's the Quentin Tarantino movie before there were Quentin Tarantino movies. My favorite movie ever. But this is that movie. It's a rewatchable that the Jets fans can watch over and over and over again and absolutely love it. I contend another game that we're seeing from the Winnipeg Jets in which they took an NHL team and made them look like they didn't belong in the NHL. Why? Well, I don't think they gave them much of a sniff for the majority of the game. But beyond that, I don't think this was anywhere close to the Winnipeg Jets at their best. This is the Winnipeg Jets kind of coming in halfway through the first period. I know they had a pretty hot start. Then after that, they kind of seemed to get a little bit sleepy. I was talking quite a lot with some of the people throughout the show, chatting a little bit with Pat Rothwell. I said at the beginning I didn't like it. What I didn't like about the Jets in the middle of that first period stanza was I've talked so much about their details and how great their details are. I thought their details were off. Their system was not off, and I'll get back to that because that's the important part. But their details, you started to see them try some hope plays that you don't specifically or typically see them try. They started, making moves going in the wrong direction, doing things with the puck that they wouldn't typically do. And I thought that their details were off. But if your details are off and your system remains solid, it's still really hard to score on this team. And talking with Brendan Dillon after the game, he said that's basically it with this team is we just, no matter what happens, we may not have our legs. We may be tired. We may not, be the most motivated. I'm sure they're not getting bored with this, but it's hard for a team to operate absolutely at its peak for an extended period of time. And the reason why we see that from the winning from the Winnipeg Jets is because they're not operating at their peak. And this is another example of it. This is, to me, the Winnipeg Jets, maybe in the third of 5 gears. And in the third of 5 gears, they take a Columbus Blue Jackets team and make them look once again like they don't belong in the same rink with them. Phenomenal performances by a lot of players. Connor Hellebuyck, I thought he was maybe, a little meh on the night. You thought I was going to go there, didn't you? No, I'm not doing that. Listen, Connor Hellebuyck, I will say that this is a perfect example of what makes the Winnipeg Jets so perfect and a rounded out team at this stage. The first 2 periods, I thought, was the vast majority of shots were floated in from distance. Connor Hellebuyck, I've said this in the past, there's some goalies, sometimes there should be an option at times where a goalie gets a shutout that he doesn't get the first star. This was not an example of that. Third period, a brilliant third period by Connor Hellebuyck, and a great example of when there are breakdowns or where there is a push from another team, a goaltender just absolutely, like, Connor Hellebuyck took control of his shutout on this night. Connor Hellebuyck said, regardless of what opportunities my team has given this other team tonight, when there is an opportunity presented to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I am absolutely going to shut that down. There's a ton of save of the game candidates, of course, like 2 minutes into that first period, that pass across the crease that he stops and makes it look like he knew exactly where it was going and arrived there long before the puck ever arrived there. There's a stick save that I'm almost fully convinced that he actually made on purpose. There's a really good reactive, not reactionary. We handle our grammar as best as we can on the K in our show, but a pad kick out play. And then there's a redirect in the slot that he gets to. There's a ton of things he does in that third period, but this is the point of me talking earlier on a couple podcasts ago about the way I had to kind of adjust my thinking about Connor Hellebuyck from being that goaltender that is basically thrown to the wolves from night to night and fights off and kills about, all the Wolves that night are 11 of 12 and they don't quite get the win. This is Connor Hellebuyck, being ready to go at the time, falling into the system that the Winnipeg Jets have provided for him now and doing it in a perfect manner. I said it again. I'm not going to back off of that. I think a lot of goalies would look great in this Winnipeg Jets system. There were a ton of floated shots in tonight for him to, those are the stats patters, if you will. But Connor Hellebuyck was perfect on this night, and not perfect without effort, perfect in a way that other goaltenders I don't think could have been in this situation. The majority of other goaltenders couldn't have been in this situation. And it's why we're talking about a shout out here tonight on the Kenny and Renny post-game show. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business to share his take. Here comes Kenny. Just want to get started here. Sorry, I was sharing those comments in the middle of your fine music video, Ken. Sorry about doing that, but I wanted to point this out. I was doing the lamplighter. Ken took the lamplighter and the keg for the last couple of games because things got busy for me. I took it back tonight. I noticed there's a lot of people like BD Longshot. Yeah, I'm getting you to stand up in front of the class while I chastise you. Lamplighter Morrissey's. It's a great pick. You got to hashtag this. It's hard for us to find it. We're gonna miss this stuff if you don't do it. Binaural, perfect example of doing this. The hashtag TCB Lamplighter Morrissey. It's the same comment, Ken, but it's not. Look at them back and forth. You can barely tell they're a different comment. They look great, except one doesn't have a hashtag and is a lot harder for us to find. And it means BD Longshot, your chances of winning the Lamplighter are a long shot. Maybe.
Well played.
Anyways, I'm going to move on from that. Ken, I look like a Vittorio Rossi, man. You don't. That means I win. Podcast over. Good night, everybody. It was good to see you. But in all seriousness, I love this. This is one of these things where I went back and hadn't worn this tie for a while. And what I do is when I go in there, Frank paint by numbers this for me, Ken. He lays out the suits, he lays out the shirts, he lays out the ties, and he says, now, what you want to do is you want to wear this suit with this tie, never wear it with that suit, never wear this suit with this tie, so on and so forth. He takes pictures. I have a memory bank of all those things that I can go back to and look, so I look like a Vittorio Rossi man. Mm-hmm. Not only will they get you the clothes to look like a Vittorio Rossi man, they will give you the style cues, the education, Ken, on how to look like a Vittorio Rossi man. If that sounds cool to you, and I don't know how it possibly couldn't, you should head on down to Corydon Avenue and get to Vittorio Rossi. Walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, my friend, you're looking good. Look like a guy who was out on the golf course today with his one true love in this life, his golf clubs. How'd it go today?
Fun day, a little chilly. Again, not bringing this up because I know
don't do this. Don't be. It's a little chilly.
It's in the 40s, early low 50s. So I'm glad I got a game in. I apologize. The The Monterey Mist Mustang is in the garage. My in-laws are just getting back from their Christmas visit in Winnipeg, so we've got a different background here in fine Maricopa. So great to be out. No other 81s to report, but it was nice to get a couple of games in, including one yesterday with former Manitoba amateur champion and former pro golfer Jordan Krantz. So I had a great visit with him out on the golf course. Had some fun shots, had some interesting ones, and we'll be home for Thursday. But yes, thanks for holding down the fort back home.
Of course.
Always a treat to get a little extra. And hey, interesting game again for sure. I understand. I know it wasn't the best of games, but I mean, when it's funny to say that now, Sean, and the Jets win 5-0, and they openly talk about really not having great legs for most of the first, even though they were up 1-0.
They didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's good. I love the honest assessment, though. That's what I was getting at from Cole Perfetti and Brennan Dillon, right? So, before it would have been, good. It was in some ways too, Sean. I mean, this will sound ridiculous, but after 3 and 4 on the road, they're trying to make it feel like a road period when they're home in that first game of a 4-game homestand. And hey, it wasn't their best, but again, they didn't give up much. And in the first, at least, they gave up some chances, but nothing crazy. But yeah, overall, Cole Perfetti, a bit of a, big night for him. And I think the other part too, Sean, not just the offense and the 3-point game, but we've talked so often this year about Rick Bowness, skipping Cole Perfetti's turn late in games. So in a game like today, the lead is a little bit more expanded. Perfetti's out there for a chance to get a hat trick, but also to show his coach that he can count on him in those situations, and he doesn't have to put someone else out on the ice instead of him when it's maybe a 1-goal game. So, I know you had asked Cole Perfetti about the pass from Dylan Sandberg, and he talked about the roommate connection and, smart play all around. And yeah, I mean, this team is really rolling right now, Sean. There's no other way to put it. I mean, it's 7 consecutive victories, season high. And Sean, in those 7 games, they have 7 different players have delivered the game-winning goal, including, Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt. So we've heard Rick Bowness talk so much about needing the offense to get going from the defense, and there they are. And two of those last 3 games, defenseman has the game-winning goal. So impressive on that front. I know, again, I was not in the building. I can only imagine that the scene inside the building when Mark Scheifele took that slapper that was redirected by Emil Bemstrom off the right, just outside the right ear, it looked like. That sounded like it caused a few stitches. But, I mean, Mark Scheifele is very fortunate to... Now, we don't know the full extent. Yes, we'll see how he feels tomorrow and everything else. But the fact that he skated onto the ice for the celebration and was still in full gear, I would say that's a humongous sigh of relief for the Winnipeg Jets. Mark Scheifele's playing the best hockey of his career, quite frankly. And, no one needs to be reminded, and it's been mentioned in the chat room, I mean, that was very reminiscent of Brian Little taking a slap shot behind the ear, and we know that didn't turn out well for him, obviously, unfortunately for him. And obviously you don't think it's going to be like that for Mark. He got up all right, and, everyone hopes that he's okay in the morning and everything else. But another game, Sean, we said at the end of last podcast, we don't talk about Josh Morrissey enough. Well, hey.
Yeah, hold on. Let's
Not
get
yet?
to a full
Right.
segment on him.
Sure.
This
All
isn't something you're going to pass. This isn't, your hot
I wasn't
balls.
planning on passing.
This
I wasn't
isn't-
planning on passing.
Listen, you can keep going with the buffet, but this is going to be a full course meal today
Okay.
on Josh
All right.
Morrissey. This is not going to be one of
Good.
10 dishes that you trot out.
Good. Then let's carry on. That's all I got.
All right. You want to go? That's all you got? Okay. I wanted to point something out quickly before we go. Oh, I'm going to touch on this. Braden Mahan wanted to talk about attendance, and I'm going to give this an early Pristine Roofing wake-up call. I'm going to do it, though, in an extremely respectful manner. Attendance was 12,500 tonight. I get that the Columbus Blue Jackets aren't like the highest level team out there. A lot of their stars are injured, or at least
including
Patrick
the
Laine,
star that has
one.
the most, the biggest impact in this market.
So I get that, and I don't want to chastise fans to a crazy degree, because I understand. I've heard too many stories of people. Believe me, this is something we talk with people quite a bit. I understand the stories for a lot of people and why they may be staying away. I know finances are an issue. People talk about this all the time, and they point out the idea that you and I don't have to pay to go to games. That is 1,000% correct. Continue to point that out all the time. Kenny and I are lucky, and I'll tell you, when I first started this job, I was like, so I get paid to go to these games? What's going on here? I would be paying to go to them if I wasn't getting paid for them. So I am never in the position of a fan where I need to pay to get into that building. So I want to make that absolutely clear. What I would say, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan that feels like you have the finances and the capabilities and the time to get out and see the Winnipeg Jets play, and there's something holding you back, maybe it's something about, how this team played in the past or whatever, or you're not quite a believer yet. If you have the means to be there, could be there, or thinking of being there, and you're not going there, this is your Pristine Roofing wake-up call, because you are in the middle of watching. I know the standings say that they're the first place team in the league. What I'm seeing here, Ken, there's not a lot of, and I don't want to get too crazy because we're a year removed from the Boston Bruins having the greatest regular season that anyone has ever had before, and that ended in a first round toss. So I don't want to make it sound like we've never seen what's happening before here with these Winnipeg Jets, but the combination of how they're playing right now, how they're not allowing points, how they're just absolutely breaking teams like this, and never mind this, Ken, like people are, I've had some people say to me, oh yeah, well, they're playing a bunch of, second-rate teams right now in games straight. Even if that's the case, 4 straight games against teams that aren't upper echelon, they can only play the schedule in front of them. Beyond that, they go back. Hey, LA Kings, they knocked them off. Boston Bruins, they knocked them off. Colorado Avalanche, how about we beat them twice? The Carolina Hurricanes, we'll beat them too. The last time the Winnipeg Jets lost to a team that could be considered a contender, that's all the way back on November 30th, a game that they looked to have in hand against the Edmonton Oilers until a puck squeaked through Connor Hellebuck, and that kind of changed the face of the game, and they lose that game 3-1. But the Winnipeg Jets, if you're trying to prop up an argument that the Winnipeg Jets are where they are right now because of an easy schedule, you're not paying attention. The Winnipeg Jets have been laying beatdowns as easily on the top upper echelon teams in this league as they have on the teams that they've been playing in this 4-game stretch here. So a very respectful Pristine Roofing call to all the folks out there who could be at the games and for some reason are choosing not to be. This is your Pristine Roofing wake-up call, and that means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy who can come down and tell you what you need to do if you have any roofing/siding/exteriors needs. And you can also get a hold of the fine folks at Pristine Roofing at 1-204-237-7663 if you want to talk with someone who didn't think that the Jets were going to go 2-8 in their first 10 games of the season. That's the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Okay, now, Ken, now we can get into Josh Morrissey. What do you got?
Well, I mean, it's just a spectacular performance, and we've come to see them on a regular basis, but I love the shooting mentality for Josh today. I thought it was exceptional. He was firing pucks on the power play, straight up clapper, bar down, glove side, just an absolute rocket. Obviously, he was a little bit frustrated with obviously he hadn't had a lot of points. I think it was 5 games without a point, and it seemed like he let out a little bit of exhilaration there when he banged the glass after burying that shot. But just another impressive performance from a guy who, continually is stacking them. And I just think it's much like the Jets themselves as a team, Sean. I mean, I think that people who watch the Jets appreciate the greatness that they're seeing from him, but if some folks aren't paying attention, they should also get their own pristine wake-up call, because Josh Morrissey has been absolutely dynamite again. Almost every other night he's been fantastic, and that's again the case this evening, where he finishes with, doesn't have to have a taxing night because it's a blowout, 22-56, 3 shots on goal, 1 goal on for 2 even strength markers. I mean, this is a guy that's been absolutely awesome, and I loved. I sent you a note in real time. I thought his back check in the third period. This game is an absolute blowout. He picked somebody's pocket on the way back on a back check, just showing incredible hustle, and that's just what he does right now. He's not taking any shifts off. He just is continuing to put up 20 plus minutes a night of quality hockey, and it's impressive. And folks shouldn't just gloss over it because we've come to expect it.
So Josh Morrissey at the start of that game, I don't know if you heard me, Ken. In the middle of that first period, I was starting to see the Jets' details slip. And I was thinking, okay, so here it comes. Here's the game where they've got this. I still thought that they were going to win, but I thought, if you start doing this and letting the details slide and playing this sloppy kind of hockey, then this is the kind of thing that's going to catch up with you down the road. If you start doing that more and more, that's what snowballs. That's what becomes a problem. I want to say I think the Jets snuffed it out before the end of that game. And like I said, I don't think they ever really fell out of their structure, but that sloppiness created a little bit more ice for the Columbus Blue Jackets than we're used to seeing. And what I saw out of that was Josh Morrissey. This system is created so that the Jets players have to do less. They do more by doing less because everyone kind of shares the work all around. They didn't quite have those lack of details were opening up a little bit of ice. And what I saw was Josh Morrissey kind of just covering more ice and just doing it like it was almost like the true capabilities of this guy are hiding, right? Like he's got so much more to give. If you put it this way, if you put this guy on an absolute train wreck of a team, Josh Morrissey would be running around the ice, killing plays left, right, and center because he's got the capability to do so. He doesn't need to in this system. It would be a problem if he did in this system because you need to stay within the system. But Josh Morrissey is the kind of guy that if you were another team in the league and you looked around and you said, hey, we need a guy. Do you think this guy fits into our system? Forget about asking that question. Josh Morrissey could go on any single team in the NHL and absolutely pop. That to me was just a reminder of that. Never mind the goal that he scores. Boy, oh boy, when he comes in and can shoot and has time to shoot that far post, it better look out. I just thought this is another example of showing. I had seen a listing on the internet that had like tierings of defensemen in the league. It had Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes in the upper tier, and then that second tier behind it, Josh Morrissey was included in that second tier. Rasmus Dahlin was in that. Fox was in that. I think that's a perfect representation. Again, this is just an obvious statement at this point. If there's a best on best tournament, Josh Morrissey will be going there to represent Team Canada.
Yeah, and like I said, the shooting mentality today, 8 shot attempts. So he's looking for his shot, which is important. And Sean, I can't wait to see Josh Morrissey and Cale Makar in an Olympic Games or in a World Cup of hockey. It'll be just absolutely outstanding to see. But just one quick thing, and this has nothing to do with the market. We know what size the market we work in and cover games in. If we hear all the time about the Leafs needing defensemen. If Josh Morrissey played for the Leafs, he'd be on the highlights every night. So I just think that it's important for people to recognize what they're seeing and just the ability to take his game to that next level. And honestly, Sean, one of the most important, Rick Bowness had a lot of conversations the year that he came in and as head coach. Can you imagine there being one more important than the one that he had with Josh Morrissey about him unlocking his potential of being a top 10? Like he was setting the bar high as being a top 10 defenseman. He's easily a top 10 defenseman, and I think right now he's a top 5 defenseman.
I couldn't. You know what? You're entirely right. And if you think about it, this Jets team, it jumped up last year. It kind of fell apart last year. I don't think Josh Morrissey fell apart last year.
No, not at all.
He was one of the guys who kind of held strong. And another one of those guys down the stretch last year, Adam Lowry was the best Winnipeg Jet into the playoffs and remaining in the playoffs. Those two guys, whatever conversation Rick Bowness had with them in the summer before coming here, changed those guys for the better. They were already great players. They ramped it up a notch. And I think those conversations had a lot to do with it. So that's a good point. Ken, I think we've done a decent job. I don't know, on covering this. I'm hungry for more, though. I need more. I need more analysis on this. And I know a way that we can do that. There's one thing that we can do. It's a weapon of sorts that you only pull out in the most dire of situations. It's blunt, it's heavy, it's
weapon of mass destruction.
Powerful.
There
you know what? I'll tell you what it is, Ken. It is time to bring down the hammer.
Bring down the hammer! Dropping two bombs, dodging shot grenades! Move over, get someone else who has no something! I'm gonna make Renny shout and the show will overtime! Bring down the hammer!
You know what? We need to start investing in fireworks after that song, because that needs to be like going up. And I'm going to come in one of these shows and be holding a Roman candle when we bring down the hammer, because that absolutely rocked. Jeffy, it's been way too long since we've seen you. Great to have you on the show. I know we pushed to do it in the past. I know you're busy with Bombers, but there's a rightful spot for you to be sitting in, and it's right on the other side of that guy right there. It's great to have you back. Hey, let's get started.
Not even going to let me say, hey, thanks for having me here. Just moving right on to business. It's great to be here. And you know what? I'm glad that we were able to finally get past the contract negotiation. Here we are. Yes. It was intense. It was everything you'd expect and a bit more, but here we are, cooler minds prevailed, and here I am, man. It's great to finally make my debut. It was nice to hear that music. Go ahead, Sean. What do you want to talk about?
In totally unrelated news, contractually, Rennie's not allowed to wear the headband anymore. It's been taken over by Jeff Hamilton. So hey, he's got a good agent. What can I say? Mine didn't do a very good job of representing, and he's got the guy. He brought down the hammer, no doubt. Hey, continue on with this talk about Josh Morrissey. We really have not given him enough airtime on this show, because it feels, Hammy, like every single night you could be going on a long soliloquy about Josh Morrissey. I thought tonight was just another night I think what he did tonight is he made it so it's impossible for us to not talk about him.
Well, isn't that a testament to just where he's come in the last year and a bit here, even 2 years? I mean, he was always a good player, but the fact that you kind of just glance over a strong performance is what you do to players who consistently perform. And Josh Morrissey is a guy that what I like, what I think is obviously outside of them taking up a bunch of playing against the team's best players, eating up a bunch of minutes, playing in all situations. What I like about him is his presence on the ice. He's not a a guy who's going to scare anybody on the other team, but he skates so well, he covers his position so well, that he must just bring a calming influence to that team. Like knowing a guy like him is on your team is going to do everything right and is going to just be where he needs to be at all places and be that composed guy. And then you see him rip one top shelf and you see that emotion come out on him. He's adding more than just the sum of his parts, if you will. There's these intangibles that come with his game, and that's and he's blossoming and maturing into as you mentioned, Sean. Like, I'm right there with you, man. This guy would be on Team Canada if the team was made right now. He's moved himself into that conversation. He's a guy that I think is obviously a very special player for this team. And while he doesn't get a lot talked about, I'd also say he gets talked about a ton. I don't think anybody who covers this team or any fan of this organization doesn't know how important Josh Morrissey is to this team, and in all ways, on and off the ice.
Hey, I want to bring this up here. BA Split says, I remember when Hammer was mad a lot. He's mellowing with age. Now, I only bring this up because I was getting a lot of comments earlier on about like positive Renny. What's going on here? Hey, he's not angry anymore. All these different kind of comments at the beginning of the year. And I would implore you for a second to maybe consider what's happened to the Jets over the course of this podcast. And maybe, just maybe, guys like myself or a guy like Hammy aren't mad. Maybe we're pointing out the kind of BS stuff that had led to failure in the past, and maybe the positive outlook that you've seen right from the beginning of the podcast this season has something to do with a team that is doing the things that are right, that have them constantly moving up the standings and landing in a good spot. Like, put it this way, we try to be as uninvested as journalists. We try to come into this and just say the facts are the facts. I know we get a little bit heated in broadcast. That's what you do. You talk about things. This is a problem. That's a problem, whatever. But maybe, just maybe, consider the idea that the Jets, who went on a stretch last year that almost saw them have the biggest collapse in NHL history, maybe that's the thing that's getting pointed out. It's not, anger issues, although Hammy, maybe he's got some anger issues. I don't know. He seems like a good guy. Whenever we hang out, I don't see it flashing. But
there's a good amount of anger there. But you know what I always find funny? You know what I always find funny about it is that I think last season was the perfect example. Go watch the first half season of Kenny and Renny shows, and it's very much like these conversations. Everything was going right. They were getting away with things. Maybe obviously a lot more than they are now. They're a lot more structured and whatnot, but this team deserves all the praise that they're getting. They're playing the style in which that they're playing a style that they're committed to, and that commitment was not seen for long stretches. And when you added on last year with how pouty the players were and how hard done by this organization seemed to be, like now you see that hard work being paid off here, the day in and day out commitment to everything they're doing. And we just didn't see that before. So, I think as passionate as I like to call it, Renny, as we get sometimes, I think there's also an appreciation for everything that this team has been able to do this year. This is a team that is not only playing hard on, night in and night out and showing a commitment to defense, they're a likable organization. And I think that's the shift here. And I think really, go along for this wave, fans, because this is a team that I think they've uncovered something pretty special, and we'll see what the rest of the year plays out here. But you got to be feeling good about where they're at right now.
They're the real deal, no doubt. Ken, I'm going to throw this to you because you look hungry. You've been away from the buffet for far too long with Jeff here. Let's get to Lowry. And I thought it was pretty interesting how Rick Bowness kind of went out of his way to point out to Adam Lowry tonight, or point out Adam Lowry and the role that he played in kind of getting the team going, doing the right things on the ice. Ken, just your thoughts on another game out of Adam Lowry that just is captain material over and over.
Yeah, I mean, tone setting, it's what he does best. I mean, whether it's the demeanor he brings to the rink, the intensity he brings on the ice, the physical nature he plays with. Today it's 2 assists, 17 minutes, 1 shot on goal, 4 attempts, 1 hit, 2 block shots, 55% in the circle, because, we know that the Jets have struggled in that area of late. So, I mean, Adam Lowry... I mean, it's good that Jeff is here. I mean, Jeff was one of the guys who was first on the train in terms of the Adam Lowry for captain, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon, let's say, for example. So
campaign manager.
Let's go with that. I think that's a good way to put it. And that came from conversations with players. So, right. I mean, that you have to salute that, but it was also formed from an opinion. So for me, I've just been so impressed by the way that Adam has shouldered a big load. Adam goes out of his way to say it's other guys are helping out too. And we know that Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey are big parts of the leadership group, but Adam has also kind of provided a bit of shelter so that those guys aren't constantly having to speak every day. And we know it's easy to speak every day when a team has won seven games in a row and things are going great and, fast times at Ridgemont High. But I think that Adam, one of his best qualities is his inclusive nature and just his demeanor. Like, we've talked about this before. There's no dark clouds around the Winnipeg Jets, and it's been like that since training camp. Since the day he was unveiled as captain, there has been a mood shift in terms of people feeling comfortable coming to the rink and smiling a little bit more. This is a team that likes to have fun. They're a fun-loving group. They enjoy the game. A lot of them study the game very closely, and they enjoy spending time with one another on and off the ice. So for me, Adam's ability to have, a relationship with, his line mates, the people at the upper end of the ice time meter, and then the call-ups and guys with the moose. Like, he's paying attention to guys playing junior and the prospects. So for me, I don't think you can put a valuation on what he's been able to do in terms of bridging this team and helping them find a better headspace when they come to the rink. And it shows in his play. I mean, he's also played very well, and when he needs to drop the gloves, he does. When he needs to run somebody through the end boards, he does. And he also was able to avoid a lengthy drought. Like, I think it was 35 games last year without a goal. And yes, give Adam Lowry credit for, making light of a tough situation to go through for him emotionally. But there's been no dip in his game whatsoever this year. We think of a couple years ago where he was, kind of forced to drag around Christian Vesalainen, and surprise, his offensive game dipped. Now Adam's just doing a great job with whoever he plays with. Mark goes down with the injury, goes on the power play, sets up Gabriel Velarde. Like, that's what he's been doing. That's what he does. So I've been incredibly impressed by his start to the season, and I think he's just really getting started. I mean, he's a natural born leader, and I think he's going to get better and better with time, even though he's already great at the job, even though he's pretty new on it.
Hammy, I want you to go a little bit on Lowry, because again, you were one of the guys who was on the front end of the Lowry for captain. I'll always go back to this and own it. I had thought that Josh Morrissey should be the guy at the time. I was talking with North End Rick about this, who North End Rick probably is the captain of the Adam Lowry fan club. But I concede that this was the perfect move to make. In every way, it looks like that. What had you thinking that, and how much of what you expected from him are you seeing now in him as a captain?
Yeah, I look back at. I mean, let's just say this off the top. If Josh Morrissey was the captain of this team, it wouldn't be a bad decision. You could debate whether or not they'd be as cohesive. I think they would. Adam Lowry would have remained probably in that leadership group. So I think you could have switched them off. But my original thought was, I just felt ultimately that Adam Lowry kind of represented Winnipeg, a bit more than everybody else. It was a guy who was going to stick around. Obviously Josh is under contract. I don't see him going anywhere. He's also a guy that I felt that, could handle the burden of wearing the C. And I think that was a big thing with Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler was the ultimate competitor. He was the guy that, there was nobody who worked harder, that fought through adversity and injuries more than Blake Wheeler. But Blake Wheeler clearly could not handle the burden of being the C in a lot of instances, and certainly by the end. And I'm talking about, even before he got the C removed from him, And so, you look at Adam and maybe even before that, this was a tryout last year, right? I mean, with no C, with just A's, he was, Rick Bowness was obviously looking to figure out who was that right mix, right? He was a new coach. I think it made a lot of sense not to just strap a C on somebody right after taking a C away from somebody to evaluate the situation. And, while Josh Morrissey, is certainly one of the most sophisticated and elegant speakers on the team. He's a great quote. He gives a ton of perspective. He has a lot of time for everybody. It got to him early on in the season. And by the time it hit that 5-game road trip, Josh Morrissey couldn't really handle the media, to the point where he got a break afterwards until the All-Star break, just to get a break from media. And so, but that wasn't the thing that tipped me over. I started asking players, man, and it got to a point where it was like, it wasn't really a debate. It was, if Adam doesn't get the C, what's happening here? It was not even like and it was no disrespect to Josh Morrissey. It was just obviously, how much respect Adam had. And I think the biggest difference, and not that Josh Morrissey doesn't possess this, I just think Adam Lowry has this in spades, is that ability to, as you mentioned, Kenny, his body language is there. He shows up consistent when it comes to attitude day in and day out. But he also is that, that conduit, if you will, between the guys lower on the depth chart and the guys higher in the depth chart. And I'm not saying that it's like, a middle team dance here where, this side of the room hangs out with each other and this side of the room hangs out with each other. But there's a lot of things that happen within a team where guys aren't feeling, like they're part of it, right? And I think Adam Lowry has the ability to make, pick those guys up, to take the time to make it a cohesive dressing room, locker room. And I think that's really it. When they talk about everybody feeling like a part of it, whether you're Mark Scheifele, the top line centerman, or you're a guy trying to work his way out of the press box, you need to have purpose and value on the team. And I'm not saying Adam Lowry is the sole person taking care of this, but I think he sets that culture where everybody is supporting each other, and it starts with the captain. And I think that's trickled all the way down the lineup, and that's why you see such a cohesive group here.
I think, Jeff, when you make that point about Josh Morrissey needing that break towards the end of the season, I had excused it at that time because I had thought, I had excused it because I thought Josh Morrissey had been carrying so much of the load and had taken so much on his shoulders up to that point that it was excusable that happened. But I think you're right. The way that you say it right now, I think you're right. I don't think that had the roles been reversed, if Adam Lowry was in that situation, that the weight would have broken him. I don't know that the weight can break this player, which is why, to your point, I think he makes an absolutely massive, kind of the perfect captain for this team. And you're right. The way that he handles the media, I think he does such a good job of it, that he steps up to the mic. He never seems to complain about it. He's always takes time for everybody, for different people from different media outlets. You can stop him outside the scrum if he's not up that day. He's in the scrum. And, today was an example. I thought that he was talking, and he gives you such long, thoughtful answers that by the time the scrum is over, you're thinking like, this is going on a long time. And you're thinking he's going to try and rush himself out of the scrum. And instead he just stays there and gives nothing but thoughtful answers down the stretch. I also think he handles the media well. I'm going to bring up a good example of this, and mainly because I think it helps Renny with an argument that he's had with Ken going for a long time here. I joke, but I'm going to bring this up because I've been on this show and I've been trying to kind of share my opinion on the entire thing about Connor Hellebuyck and how the team has gone. And the one thing that I haven't liked about the situation is I feel like people are sleeping on how good the Jets have been defensively. I don't know if maybe I didn't get my point across. I think Lowry gets it across perfectly this morning when he says the way we've been playing defense. He was asked about Connor Hellebuyck and how good he's been playing, and if maybe this is the best he's ever seen Connor Hellebuyck play before. Lowry says the way we've been playing defensively almost has allowed this streak to continue on. Nothing to take away from Connor's game. He's the best goalie in the world in my mind. He gives us a chance to win every night. He just hasn't been as busy per se. I like this. The reason I like it, in all honesty, this isn't about me supporting my argument. I like this because it's his job to support, to represent not just Connor Hellebuyck and what people are saying around the league, but his team. He's going to bat for his team right now in this comment and in this answer. He's asked about Connor Hellebuyck and uses it as an opportunity to say nothing against Connor Hellebuyck. This team deserves its due for what it's doing around Connor Hellebuyck and for the results that we're seeing from Connor Hellebuyck. And I love the idea of this captain subtly coming out and making this point. It's a point that I think has needed to be made. I don't think it's out there enough. I like that he came out, Adam Lowry, in that goes to bat for his teammates to try and make sure they're given their due for what we're seeing from this team defensively. I think he did an absolutely great job of it. To the point, he did a better job of it than I did. Maybe we should be calling this the Kenny and Lowry show. Why not the Kenny or the Renny and Lowry show? I want to see the Kenny and Lowry show because I want to see Ken try and deliver his you should break up your third line right to Adam's face. Now that would be a great podcast. Let's make it happen, people.
I've actually talked with Adam Lowry about Alex Iafallo, and he actually said to me he was just starting to get used to playing with them before they did the switch. So
you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Lowry also wants to break up the third line, according to
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said he was. Yeah,
you're trying to talk your way
He can do the job.
You can use your circular logic all you want, Ken. You're not going to talk your way out of this. Hey, Ken, give Sweet Lou a shout out.
Sure. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, buying, selling, curious what the market is doing right now as we get into 2024, you can contact Lou Furlan at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
I also wanted to give a shout out again for Adam Lowry for handling that the way that he did in the media. I thought that was great teamwork involving all his teammates in there. And we wanted to give a quick shout out as well to the team at Cambrian Credit Union from answering members' calls in less than 1 minute to having all their advisors available by video from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It makes it so easy to be a Cambrian member. It is obvious that the whole team at Cambrian cares about giving you great service. Okay, we got to get here before we get to the rest of the stuff. Jeff, you made waves going on to Winnipeg Sports Talk with a lot of your.
Well, I was wondering when you were going to monitor
second.
the chat.
We got to get there
first with the legal curve, buddy. First with the legal curve.
Sure. Jeff, some big swings that you're talking about having or happening. What are you hearing out there, and what do you think are the potentials and the potential home runs the Jets could hit?
Well, let me clear something up, because the chat room, the rumors that are flying in your chat room, I don't know who's in charge of moderating this thing, but it's just been lies. No way did I suggest that it was Sidney Crosby for Rutger McGroarty. Sorry, fans, but if they want Sidney Crosby, it's going to take even more than that. So if you don't like Rutger McGroarty leaving, well, it's going to be more than that. Anyway, this wasn't, what I'm hearing. It's the potential it's the fact that the Winnipeg Jets are first place in the NHL. And look, Sidney Crosby's in a precarious situation with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are starting to win games, but he's under contract for the end of next season. And so there's talk about, the potential of things come falling. If the house of cards comes falling down in Pittsburgh and they don't make the playoffs, that there's potential that Sidney Crosby could get moved. Now, a lot of people say, he wants to win in Pittsburgh. Absolutely, he wants to win in Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh is within 2 points, 5 points, 6 points of a playoff spot by the deadline, I don't see Sidney Crosby getting moved. But if the Penguins fall off the map, it's just good business to at least consider it. At this point in time, the chatter is if there was a place that he would want to go, there's only a handful of places. And Colorado is one that's being rumored. Obviously, his connection with Nate McKinnon, that would be an interesting one, and certainly, a team that could use him. But there's also this chatter about his interest in Canada. And I'm not saying that this is something he wants to do or whatever. And some of the people that you talk to say his dad was a goaltender, got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. There's something about Montreal that appeals to Sidney Crosby, but I think
it was his favorite team growing up as a kid.
Exactly. And so I think, but I also think this guy would want to win. Let's face it. The likelihood is this guy stays in Pittsburgh, right? He wants to win in Pittsburgh. He wants to, live out his contract in Pittsburgh, no doubt. I'm saying the Winnipeg Jets, it's not like I'm saying the Winnipeg Jets are going to get Sidney Crosby, but the Winnipeg Jets, the way they've played, where they're at in the standings, have put themselves, I believe, in at least the consideration of going to a team that could win the cup. And the Winnipeg Jets have the assets. Now, I mean, you can make debate all you want about, not wanting to give up, big names and prospects and yada yada, but I'm telling you right now, could you imagine 87 on the Winnipeg Jets and what that would mean? This is if take away the insanity, all the insanity aside, and just say if what the Winnipeg Jets need the most. They need a centerman. They need a guy who can win faceoffs. They need a guy who can play in all situations, is an elite scorer. Like this guy, getting Sidney Crosby is like getting 3 players in a trade, in my opinion. And if you add 3 good players to the Winnipeg Jets roster, that's an insane roster. So, making waves, whatever it is, having fun on a legal curve. And of course, Hustler is going to bring it up because everybody attaches it to my name to it. But I just think it would be an amazing situation. And while it's an incredible long shot and crazy to even think about, why not? I mean, why not the Winnipeg Jets this year? If they continue, what if they go 50 games with allowing 3 or fewer goals? Like, why wouldn't you want, I think the Jets options, whether it's Sidney Crosby or other players, will open up if they continue to play the way they're playing. And I'm just, as crazy as it sounds, as stupid as you want to call me, I think that this could be I think that would be an incredible situation for Winnipeg and would put them over the top in ways I don't think we ever could have imagined.
Just another quick one on that front. Just Sean, Sydney has a connection to Winnipeg. If folks have forgotten, the year that the Team Canada, the lockout year, went and played in Grand Forks, they spent 7 to 10 days here. Their training camp was in Winnipeg. They spent 2 days in Gimli. I've talked with Sydney about it. I mean, not to say that he has, these big dreams of coming back and playing for the Jets, but the one exhibition game, they wore the Winnipeg Falcons, the old Olympic jerseys, and this is a guy who loves hockey. Yes, if he'd love to play in a Canadian market, he's not going to be playing for the Leafs. The Leafs have their $10 million guys. He doesn't. After 2 years, the Canadian situation may be appealing. Their team might be a little bit better. They're probably going to need a little bit of leadership. But hey, so if you're Sidney Crosby's preference is to spend his whole career with the Pittsburgh Penguins like Mario Lemieux did. However, if all of a sudden the loyalty switches and if they have they go to a reboot, he doesn't want to be. He's playing at an elite level late in his career, so of course he's going to want to win again. So, I mean, it would be fascinating to see. And would the money be difficult? Of course, at 8.7, they'd have to move out a high salaried player to go along with one of those high end prospects. So. And we're not talking about like a $5 million defenseman. Like, you're looking at a high-end talent probably. But, I mean, man, like I said, Jeff, I sent to you personally. I mean, I wish that I had thought of it myself, because this is a classic kind of under-the-radar-ish Kevin Cheveldayoff kind of shoot for the stars kind of scenario.
Totally.
Sean and I talked a little bit about Steven Stamkos. I don't think that's a likelihood. But, Sean, you and I have seen Steven Stamkos twice this year. There have been some subtleties in how he speaks in terms of he doesn't like how this is going. I mean, he said it publicly before training camp, but in our conversations with him, he doesn't love how it's been going. He doesn't love the fact that he's not a priority in terms of getting something done before the end of the year. So I've still leaned that it's kind of, again, both are unlikely. Stamkos to me still is a little bit more likely than Crosby, but everything that you said, Jeff, I mean, he fits, he checks so many boxes, and he's also a guy who loves the game, the way Mark Scheifele does, the way Cole Perfetti does. He sort of fits on the cultural side, and he's a Canadian icon. So, I mean, he would be a perfect fit on so many fronts.
Rick Bowness, the East Coast connection.
Oh, for sure.
Well, hey, I'll say this. I've got I'm not talking to anyone or hearing, Sidney Crosby that he's weighing this. To be honest, right now, I think Sidney Crosby is just looking forward towards this. But Sidney Crosby is what now, 36 years old, guys? Is he 36? I think he's a year younger than Blake
36.
Wheeler was. So he's 36 years old. People who are talking about him being a rental, this isn't necessarily a rental. This is a player that's under contract for this year and next year. So if you went to go get that player, you're getting Sidney Crosby for 2 swings at the Stanley Cup. I would say this.
36.
I talked about this before. There's a lot of people saying don't mess with anything. We're winning right now. We're in first. Hey, how often does the President's Trophy winner win the Stanley Cup? I'm not saying that they're going to win the President's Trophy. It's a good. I like where they're headed. But even if that's the case, I said this before, you have to address whatever potential weaknesses. That's the job of a GM at this stage. If you truly think that you've got the ability to win a Stanley Cup, you have to look and say, we could be vulnerable here. We could be vulnerable here. We could be vulnerable here. And then you have to go and address those things. I'm giving all the credit in the world for Vladdy Nemesnikov for what he's done up to this stage, but you are going to have to go 7 games again, or potentially 7 games against other teams that are fully and completely rounded out, right? If you think that the second line center position is a bit of a question mark, even a tiny bit of a question mark, and you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you could address it, I contend there's no one in the NHL who would lock that up better than Sidney Crosby. If you get Sidney Crosby, he instantaneously becomes the best player on your team. Even at the age of 36, he's instantaneously the best player. He can play a high-paced game, which means he can fit into the system the Jets are doing. He can grind. He can high fly. He can play every single kind of game, which is what the Winnipeg Jets kind of are right now. He's essentially a perfect fit here. And if you get him, now you've got this locked up because he makes, I think, $8.5 million. When you see the money that's going around the league, that's not a bad contract to have your second line center, probably now your first line center, locked up for at that point. If you are Kevin Cheveldayoff and you deem that that is a weakness, that is like taking your weakness and not like putting patch over the crack. That is tearing down the house and building it back up in stone. That is how solidly you lock up that. And hey, if you're the Jets and you really think you've got something here and you get Sidney Crosby for this year and next year, that's absolutely massive. Now on the Crosby side of things, do we really like, and maybe the answer is yes. He's already got 3 cups. Maybe he has to take a look and say, you know what, maybe the city of Pittsburgh looks at me and says, you know, maybe I spoil my legacy, right? I had a conversation with someone about this. Ray Bourque leaves the Bruins to go win his only cup with the Colorado Avalanche. The Bruins fans still loved him. They wanted to see him go do that. But he hadn't had a cup yet. He was one of the best defensemen in the history of the game, and the one thing he didn't have on his resume was winning a Stanley Cup. So Bruins fans were going to be okay with that. I don't know that Penguins fans are going to be okay with that. And if they're not, I don't know how that affects Sidney Crosby in that situation, if it makes him think, maybe I won't do this in this situation. But if the fans would be okay, and if he wants to pursue that, I ask you this. Over the next couple years, if you're Sidney Crosby and you're looking around and you're saying, where could I go if the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to fall out of this playoff race? Where can I go to make sure that by the end of this contract, I'm basically giving myself my best shot? And honestly, if you take a look, this isn't just about the Jets being in first place. This is about the fit in that spot. Is there a better fit for a cup for Sidney Crosby other than the Winnipeg Jets? I would contend what he would do to the Colorado Avalanche would improve the Colorado Avalanche by leaps and bounds. If I'm Colorado and I hear that the Jets are trying to make this move, I'm emptying the cupboards to make sure they don't get there, because I think that's a team that doesn't have the depth the Jets have. But to Jeff's point, Sidney Crosby is like getting 3 players, because it doesn't matter who you put with them. They're going to be phenomenal. So all of a sudden that lineup gets a lot deeper and they get a lot more dangerous with the defense that they have and what's going on. But this makes sense. And then again, the idea of Sidney Crosby coming back to Canada and bringing the cup back to Canada, that is something that no other player in the history of the game would have that on their resume. I ended this stupid, ridiculous cup drought for a country that is nuts about hockey. I brought it back there. That would be absolutely amazing. Kind of mind-blowing. Jeff, great conversation, great idea. Thank you for coming on the show and bringing it with us. We got to move on, though, because we're running out of time. Got to move to our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. Kenny, I'll start with you. Jeff, you can go after that.
Yeah, I love that back check by Morrissey. I know there were a couple other plays, but his willingness to go back and be back checking and stealing the puck in a game that's well out of hand, I mean, to me was very emblematic of the situation, that everything that it stands for. The Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game.
What do you got there, Abby?
Mine goes to Cole Perfetti, who, despite being up 5-0 in the game, decides to spread it out and go for the block. At the end of the game, there he had his goaltender covered, made sure that there was no chance that they were going to ruin that shutout in the dying seconds there. So Cole Perfetti gets my "We've got you covered."
I feel like I'm pulling the carpet out from underneath Kenny, which is something I would never, ever do on this show. I've got no history of doing something like that. But I'm gonna have to do it on this one. I'd said with Ken and I texted back.
Amnesia. It's the concussions talking, people. It's the concussions talking.
I was like, certainly it is. It's Josh Morrissey. But I said that to him before the block at the end of the game. I've said this before. I feel like the Winnipeg Jets, it's not even about winning to them anymore. They are just so hungry to go out and do the right thing within the bonus game plan. And that's just another one of those things. We're up 5-0. and this is a nothing burger play, yeah, I'm going to lay out in front of this because that's what we do on this team. And the most important thing to us is adhering to the system, not the win. So I like that one by Jeff. I'm going to side with Jeff on that one. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Time now to move on to the keg save of the game. Jeff, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I was going to say it's the glove save on Tessier, or on when was that? The end of the, or no, that would be my save. I was thinking early on. I was trying to think back as I was coming on the show. I was like, I don't remember any crazy saves. Even though Hellbuck had a couple. The Tessier one I think is a save of the game. But I agree with Robert Sutton too. So
Robert Sutton here says keg save of the game is Hammer. So Hammer officially gives the title of keg save of the game to himself. That's not arrogant at all. Moving on to Ken. Ken, what you got?
Jeff already took care of it. It's the Texier save.
That
was the one early in the third, right? That was the one early in the third.
The pass across the crease early in the
beauty.
third. You know what I'm going to throw in there, because I actually think he did it on purpose, or his reaction says that there's a stick save, the knob of the stick save that he makes in that kind of ending flurry. Like there was about 4 scoring chances that could have ended up in the back of the net in the last 4 minutes of the game there. And there's one that he saves and it's a stick save. And I swear by his reaction, I think he actually was like so dialed in that he redirected that puck with the knob of his stick. It could be, it could not be. I'll see if I can ask him at some point if that's the case. If not, then I just wasted a keg save of the game. And which is, that's a sin on this show, but it's okay because I went to the keg earlier today with my main man, Pat Kanuga, and one of the he's not in the chat room very often, but a fan of the show from Edmonton, in town to watch the game, Dan Rasmussen. We all went there. Dan the man. We all went out to the keg, a location at Gary Street, which is finer than the last location. I can tell you that for certain. Great meal as always. Great stuff at the keg. It's why we share our keg save of the game, hoping I didn't waste mine, but it doesn't matter. Himself and making himself the keg save of the game. That does not matter. What matters is what you think the keg save of the game was. Because if you do share with us your keg save of the game, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 locations, fine locations of the keg here in the city, each location finer than the last. And the winner of that keg save of the game, I got it written down here, it was my job to do this, is Matt Mora. Matt Mora, Matt Maura. You are the official winner of the $50 gift certificate to the keg, but you are only the winner if you direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and send me an email, and I will send you your $50 gift certificate to the keg. Matt Mora. Moving on, boys. Ken also, sorry, we'll go back to Jeff. Jeff, what is your TCB lamplighter of the day?
I got to go with Josh Morrissey, obviously. What a rip. What a celebration. Reminds me of my days playing hockey growing up. That was the exact same spot I would always pick on that side. You know what I mean? So I can't not give it to a guy when I felt like I was looking in a mirror. So definitely Josh Morrissey in that play, and nice rip, nice celebration, key goal, kind of put things out of reach officially. And I think as far as the good looking goals go, definitely up there.
Good looking.
Nothing better than top cheddar, buddy. That's all I have to say there.
Yeah, you like that one? Okay, I'm going to go with in the vein of Jeff patting himself on the back, saying he picks that because it reminds him. I'm going to pat myself on the back with this one, and I'm going to pick the power play goal scored by Gabe. I thought it was
Velarde when you just probably got cross crease passes to and just dump ins on the side.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. But it's not about me. I'm not making this about me in the sense of hockey playing, because listen, we can leave the glory days in the past, Jeff. It's okay. You could do that.
Some further back than others.
But I remember definitely. Most definitely. I remember being on this show, and when there were power play issues, I remember floating the idea of putting Adam Lowry on the power play for the idea of him getting to the front of the net and driving, taking the puck to the net and trying to kind of change the attitude of that power play. Well, when Mark Scheifele goes down, Adam Lowry gets put into that spot on the power play and does exactly that. Drives the puck to the net, makes a skilled pass over to Gabe Vilardi. He does that V redirect from one skate to the other skate up to his stick and puts it in the back of the net. I was mocked for saying that. There were some people on this show who reacted violently to the idea of trying Adam Lowry out on the power play, if only briefly, to try and bring this exact message to the power play. It's as simple as this. Drive the puck to the front of the net and good things are going to happen. Rick Bowness said as much about this. He said that was the mindset he wanted Lowry to take there. It's the mindset he wants the rest of his power play to take from that. I think that is the TCB lamplighter of the game, because it is the mindset of trying to get the Jets to do exactly what Adam Lowry did in that situation, take it to the front. Me and Adam Lowry, we're just vibing. We're vibing on this show. I can feel it. Although I didn't vibe with the idea that he wanted to break up his own third line, which again is something Ken loudly proclaimed he told Ken. So yeah, just tell your friends that that's what Ken said.
Get your hearing back on. Come on now.
Just
Let's
jokes,
go.
of course. Lamplighter of the game. That's our lamplighters. Doesn't matter what ours are, or matters what yours are, because you need to share that with us. And if you do, you're automatically entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to give you your very own Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, you can always head down to their store and buy it there. There's lots of that, lots of the blueberry, lots of all those things. And of course, it's going to be the site of the next Kenny and Renny live podcast with Jeff. We'd sure love you to join us at one of those things. But anyway, hey, they do have gluten-free options, which is, I know what you're looking for, but I digress.
When is that, January 22nd?
January 22nd. It's a Monday. We'd love to see you there. I'm going to throw the tickets in there. Jeff, we would, of course, take care of you.
I got it here, buddy.
In that situation here.
And buddy, hang on. I won't be there to defend myself, so I'll need you on site, Hammy.
You won't be there?
I'm on the road.
Okay, there you go.
What would you need defending for, Ken?
Just in general.
This is such a strange comment from my podcast partner, who I've always got his back at all times. Anyways, we'd love to see you join us there. Trying to turn that into a big room event right now, on pace for a small room event. We got 2 weeks here, people. Let's jam pack the room if we can. Would love to have you out. Like I said, we know coming off Christmas, coming off New Year's, gets it, the waistline's a little bit stretched out and the pocketbook is a little thin. But if you can make time to come down and see Kenny and Renny, or Renny, maybe Hammy, whatever, but see a live podcast.
I saw some of the chats here, Renny. I think that's the day I'm picking up Sid from the airport. So
there you go. Okay, so well, if you can bring him by,
I'll have to double check my itinerary, but.
Just so you know, we've got a promise from Jeff Hamilton that if that's the day that the Jets pick up Sidney Crosby, Jeff will pick him up from the airport and bring him by the party. I don't know a better reason for you to get tickets than that. So that's great salesmanship there, Jeff. Hey, time to announce the winner of the Lamplighter from our last show, and that would be Alistair Clark. Alistair Clark, who's been in our chat room for a long time now. You'd need to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and your email, and I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, the nectar of the gods. So congratulations, Alistair Clark. And that's it for us tonight. Hammy, this was great. It was great to have you back. You got to come on more often. I'd like you to make a commitment to. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on it right now. You're just going to say yes, I'll be back more often, and
absolutely.
That's how this go.
I always it's not now that as I mentioned, now that the contract status has been cleared up and we've all found common ground. I absolutely would love it. I mean, I've had a busy first half of the season. You mentioned Bomber stuff, but I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I got something that I'm digging into that's taking time and energy. So a lot of it's spent on that. But I'm still keeping up with everything that's happening on the ice, and I'll talk shop whenever, and I'll I'll set fires to conversations when I have to, like I did this past week. Can't you tell I hadn't seen me for a little bit? Maybe I'm building something bigger here, you know? So
No
we'll
doubt.
see.
Well, I just got to say, how
Anytime.
your agent
I'm in, Sean. I'm in.
in the negotiations, how your agent stole away the headband and made it propriety rights of the hammer. You didn't put it on today, so we're gonna have to work on that behind the scenes and get that back in Rennie's corner. That's what we're gonna do. Anyways, appreciate everybody out there. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space where guys like Hammy come out and join us, please appreciate our fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnston Group, the Keg, and Trans-Canada Brewing Company. And of course, we want to give a shout out to all of you. Is this Frosty Winnipeg says sponsors Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnston Group, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, the Keg. Am I getting a little repetitive in these end of show?
No, buddy. I like to put it up. He puts it up at the end of almost every show that he's on. So I'm just trying to let the people know who are watching.
I was going to say repetition works. Repetition can work. Anyways, thanks to all of them. We appreciate that. And thanks to all of you. This was another one. I think we topped 700. The chat room is just absolutely wild lately. It's awesome. Banging. It's awesome. Great job, everybody.
Keep downloading too. Keep downloading.
I would hope that we would see similar numbers in a Jets loss, but as the title of this video says, they're probably never going to lose again. So we don't have to worry about that problem anymore. So let's just keep this rolling. Appreciate your time, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you after the next game. Chicago, last team to beat the Winnipeg Jets?
No, San Jose.
San Jose.
No, Chicago. Yep. Sorry.
Chicago.
Yes. Chicago,
revenge,
yes.
Sweet revenge
Correct.
that the Winnipeg Jets are going for to prove that they're better than the Chicago Blackhawks, which is really up for debate right now, people. So talk to you later.